Welcome to this video on the fields of action of the extraocular muscles. In this video, we're going to learn about how do we go about assessing the action of each of the specific extraocular muscles. So what we can do clinically is determine whether a specific extraocular muscle is working normally or whether it's underacting or overacting. But in order for us to do that, we need to move the eye into what we call the field of action of that extraocular muscle. So where we get to assess the primary action of that extraocular muscle. So if we have a look here, I've given you a reminder of the primary actions. For the medial rectus, it's adduction. For the lateral rectus, it's abduction. For the superior rectus, it's elevation, and so on and so forth. So I need to find the position where I get to assess adduction. And by doing this, I get to assess the medial rectus. If I assess abduction, by doing this, I'll assess the lateral rectus. So if we go back to our cardinal positions of gaze, here we have primary position. Let's go into dextroversion, so right gaze. What I note here is that the right eye is abducting and the left eye is adducting. So this is the field of action of the right lateral rectus, because we know that the lateral rectus is an abductor, and it's the field of action of the left medial rectus, because we know that that's an adductor. Okay, what about the vertical muscles? These are a bit more complicated because let's say, for instance, the superior rectus, we know it's an elevator, but what we know is that its action or primary action of elevation occurs in abduction. So what I need to do first is, if I take the right eye, I need to move it into abduction, so into right gaze, and then get the eye to elevate. So it's here in dextro elevation that I get to assess the right superior rectus. At the same time, over here, the left eye is adducting and it's elevating. So here I get to look at the inferior oblique, because in adduction, I can look at elevation, which is the inferior oblique. So each of these positions of gaze gives me information about a specific extraocular muscle and whether it's acting normally. So I can isolate the extraocular muscle and determine whether it's acting normally. The only issue is in elevation and depression. So when a patient looks directly up or directly down, I can't isolate a muscle. So if we take the right eye, for example, whilst it's elevating, both the superior rectus and the inferior oblique are contributing to elevation. So in this position, I can't actually tell which is the problem muscle if there is a problem in that position of the gaze. I actually need to go into the tertiary positions. So let's say here, I get to isolate the superior rectus of the right eye, and over here I get to isolate the inferior oblique of the left eye. But in direct elevation, I can't do that. I might get information that the eye is not elevating properly, but I won't know which muscle is the problem muscle here. So what's the purpose of these two positions which can't isolate extraocular muscles? Well, they tell us information about change in deviation. So what I'm looking at here is the deviation different in elevation as compared to depression, and how does that relate to the primary position? So if I have an esotropia, is it smaller here as compared to here? Or if I have an exotropia, is it smaller here as compared to here? And that's what's called AV patterns. So in elevation and depression, we're looking for AV patterns. We're going to talk about these more later on. At this point, all you need to know is that direct elevation and depression tells us information about AV patterns, which is important for surgical intervention, but that it's the tertiary positions that give us specific information about the vertical extraocular muscles and can isolate the vertical recti and the vertical obliques. Finally, here we have a diagrammatic representation of the field of action of each of the extraocular muscles. So here we have the right eye, the left eye, And what we see is that if we move the patient to the right, we assess the right lateral rectus, up, right superior rectus, down, right inferior rectus. Again, if we're over to the right, for the left eye, it's left medial rectus, left inferior oblique, left superior oblique. So this gives us a nice diagrammatic representation of where it is that we are able to assess the primary action of each of the extraocular muscles, and thereby we can determine if there is a problem with one of these extraocular muscles. Okay, that brings me to the conclusion of this video. Thank you for watching.